was money well spent, I think. So let me just welcome everybody to the January meeting. Thank you so much for here. We've got 31 folks on the net. The meeting is being recorded, so that includes your chat logs and audio and video. So if you're having a sidebar conversation, please make sure you're muted so it doesn't get captured in here inadvertently, and use good aeronautical decision making in your chat and your comments. Let me just start off with a couple of announcements. In the membership meeting in November, we all voted on 3 different things. A couple of them had to do with updates to the bylaws. So Paul Wooster is working to put the new bylaw language together, so that's going on in the background. Another item that the membership approved was creating a written hangar lease. So Brian Good suggested, and I think it was a very smart suggestion, to ask folks who have a hangar lease that they either give to a renter or that they've signed as a renter and they're willing to share. If you'd send me a copy at president@EAA35.org, we'd like to go through those leases and take out the best of breed as we write the lease for our hangar. So that's some administrative information. Our VMC lead is having to step down due to scheduling issues. So we're looking for someone to pick up the VMC club activity. It's a fantastic monthly opportunity to learn and to share. So that's exciting. We want to keep that going. Our groundskeeper served his year, and we're looking for someone else to be the mower jockey. So if you like the way you look riding a powerful John Deere riding tractor, we have a volunteer position for you. And then finally, our Young Eagles program has purchased some desktop flight sim equipment. So we have a yoke, rudder pedals, a CPU, monitor that are going to be used for running a flight sim program at youth outreach activities and at Young Eagle events. So if there's anyone online or you know any of the members who are flight sim fans and would like to be responsible for the care and feeding of this, it's going to be a dedicated PC, just going to be used for a flight sim program, and then transported to and from events. But we were faced with losing some money at the end of the year that you had earned as Young Eagle pilots. And one of the options we had for employing those funds was to buy flight sim gear. So Brian Smith helped us out with that, and so that's happened. So we're looking for someone to be our flight sim lead.
Mr. Medley?
Yes.
I actually had a question. Is the computer already built, or are you guys going to do are you guys going to buy parts? Because I have a GTX 1060 graphics card I could send the chapter if you guys need a graphics card.
Super. Yeah, we ended up buying a refurbished gaming laptop, but desktop. But I'll look at it.
Oh, okay.
I'll send you the specs on the card, and if your card is better than the one that's in there and it's a compatible case, we still might be able to upgrade the video card. Thank you.
Hey, on that note, like I just upgraded my monitor. I had a 3-monitor setup with a 24-inch, and now I went with one big 49. But I just have it sitting over here if you want a 3-monitor setup for the flight sim.
Outstanding. Yeah. Yeah, I saw your Facebook post of you. I almost got motion sick. That thing was so big. Just looking at it on Facebook, that was
like the best upgrade you could have. Actually, man, that thing's awesome.
Very cool. Well, with that, Chuck, I'll turn it over to you, and welcome again, and thanks for participating.
Well, folks, welcome to 2021. We've got 2020 behind us. Some folks are not enjoying the free trial for the first week of a couple weeks of 2021, but hopefully it will be better than we've seen thus far. Let's see, I do have a couple things just to mention before we start the formal events. We're going to start off with a video. Jack Belton is going to tell us that AirVenture is still on, and there's a couple things to that effect. And what that is going to lead into is in February, we're going to do a an AirVenture planning event. So any of you all that have got good lessons learned from your adventures at AirVenture, or who have questions or things that you'd like specifically for us to discuss about going to AirVenture, please send them to me so that I can make sure that those are included in our discussion in February. And we're all going to collectively cross our fingers and toes that by then we are out of our isolation and back into doing things like AirVenture. There is an email that was sent out by one of our members about COVID. They have had a personal experience with it. A number of our members have had it, or are recovering from it, or are currently ill with it. Certainly keep those folks in your minds and in your hearts as they work through it. COVID for pilots is a significant thing because it affects, there are three things basically that it does badly. One is that it causes little microscopic blood clots. So if you, it makes the blood clot more easily. So obviously long travel, seated position, things like this, you're more susceptible to those. But those little microscopic blood clots also affect the lungs, the heart, and the brain. So people with COVID can develop the blood clot effects in the nerves in the brain, but also it causes an inflammatory reaction in the lungs where the tissue actually swells. So you can't absorb the oxygen from the atmosphere as well. It's very insidious. Some people, it's a very rapid onset, but other folks don't really even notice it. And that's part of what Larry Geiger talks about, is that his pulse oximetry was really, really low. And despite that, just a minute, I have a dog issue here. Okay, so so even at ground level, your pulse oximetry can be low, and obviously when you go up in altitude, your oxygen saturation is going to be even worse. So for pilots, that is a very significant problem. It also can affect the heart, your heart, and that can last for a long time. And the other thing that is happening, I have had a number of clients who have had COVID and have commented on the brain fog, the trouble thinking, the trouble with orientation that they have experienced with it. And every single one of them has talked about it in past tense. They didn't really notice it during the disease, but afterwards they realized how bad they had become. The spouse of one of my clients related that her husband forgot how to get home. He was driving home and he forgot the way. Okay. Obviously, if you're flying an airplane, that's bad. The bottom line is, if you have the COVID virus, this is not really a good time to take chances. Everybody makes a determination whether or not they're safe to fly every flight. And in this particular situation, I would say that if you have COVID, it's really not the right time to go out and go fly. Okay, so AirVenture planning, COVID, and today we're going to talk about, this is going to be Builders Day. We've got lots and lots of cool things to talk about. Ike Kelly is going to take us through some of the cool tools and the people that can help you to restore or build aircraft, because that's really what EAA is all about. And so I'm really thrilled with him for doing that. First, I'm going to show the chapter video. It's 6 minutes and 17 seconds long. And then we will go straight into Ike. So give me just a second here to make all of this work. This is usually where I screw it up, but I'm going to try. All right, share screen. Go to the video.
Chuck, can I ask a quick question?
Uh-huh.
How quickly after you am I going to be on?
Ike? I could be able to answer that.
Ike?
Hey, it's Ike. So we'll do right after we're done here with Steve. So be the video about 5 to 10 minutes or so with Steve, depending on if there's questions. And then over to you, Andrea, and then whenever you guys are done, back to me.
Okay, so I was going to say, do I have 15 minutes?
Yes.
All right,
not
thanks.
much more.
No, you won't. All right, bye.
All righty.
Not getting audio.
Yeah, there's
All
no
right.
audio.
Stand by. Stand by. That is possibly. All right, let me see here. Okay, take two. Yep.
Welcome to this month's Chapter Video Magazine. You know, I think I got everything on my Christmas list that was quite a surprise for me. We are really starting to turn the corner and seeing some exciting positive signs for the year 2021. And I hope all of you are making your plans to take advantage of what's taking place. Certainly on the coronavirus front, the vaccine's rolling out. It's going like gangbusters. We'll probably have, shortly after you see this video, 4 of the vaccines in place. We are counting on that being a cornerstone reason to move forward with AirVenture 2021. And we think even before that, it's a great opportunity for the chapters to get re-engaged, start flying, start meeting, and start getting back to a more normal way of life. The signs are very clear that before July, and we are putting all of our plans in place to have AirVenture. We're going to take some precautions. We're going to be good stewards of everybody's health and well-being, but there's absolutely no reason that we see right now that will not happen. And we've been working hard on, even in 2020, on getting things in place that you'll see in 2021. Probably one of the most exciting new projects is going to be the addition to our aviation museum with what we've referred to as Project 21, which will be a year-round learning center for young people and a flight proficiency center to continue to enhance pilot safety records. The foundation will start going in the coming days, and when you're here in July, which I want to make sure you're all making plans, you're getting your lists together of whether you're going to be camping or staying in a hotel or renting a house, getting current to get in your airplane and being ready to make the venture to Oshkosh in July, you'll probably see the foundation and the walls going up on that new facility. Just a little insight as to some other great things that have been going on. We did make a land acquisition just prior to the virus hitting that allows us to be able to expand our southerly footprint at AirVenture and allow us to relocate, probably in the year 2023, our ultralight field to a new, longer, bigger grass runway on 100 acres that's adjacent to the airport. Very exciting news, and that's all been purchased and wrapped up, and now it's just all about trying to get the work done to put that in place. I'm very excited. I think I've had enough of 2020. I've had enough of the virus. I've had enough of lockdowns and trying to protect my family and friends and relatives. And I just feel really encouraged that the light is on the end of the tunnel and it's not a train. And so we can get excited about our planning and getting ready for a more normal year of 2021. So let's get the chapters invigorated. Let's get back together. There's a lot of you that aren't meeting. It's time to get back and renew your friendships and get active again and start bringing people into aviation and use that time to get you to all come to AirVenture in 2021 and see you all at the Blue Barn. Thank you very much and look forward to seeing you much sooner than July.
Well, I know we're all glad to be in 2021, and I especially want to welcome our new chapter leaders this year. You know, leading your chapter is a great responsibility. It's very rewarding work, and we want to make sure you're prepared for that. So we have a lot of training that's available for new chapter leaders, or if you're just thinking about taking a more active role in helping in your chapter, you might want to tune into a few of these sessions. Because we're not going to have any boot camps for the first half of the year where we go out into the field and do these, we're going to do a 6-part series of talks starting February 11th. We did the same thing in the fall, and now we're going to offer it in the evening starting February 11th. So definitely sign up for those if you're a new officer, or if you're an existing officer. You'll probably learn quite a few things if you sign up for some of these sessions. And you don't have to attend all 6 of them, but if you do, your chapter will receive the recognition point related to chapter leadership training attendance. So it's an opportunity for for you to check, to learn a lot, but also gain a recognition point for your chapter towards your gold, silver, or bronze rating. And again, we're rolling 2020 and 2021 recognition into the same year. We're also going to hold a couple of specific sessions targeted for the new treasurers, vice presidents, presidents, and secretaries. So again, go ahead and check out what we have to offer and sign up for those sessions. Now, you have until the end of the month to apply for a Ray Aviation Scholarship. This is a tremendous opportunity to bestow a $10,000 private pilot certificate training scholarship on some youth in your area. Hopefully that's already engaged in your chapter. That would be ideal. It's been a very successful program. We're just entering year 3. You have until the end of this month, January 31st, to get that application in as a chapter. And I will just tell you from our own chapter's experience here in Chapter 252, I tell you, it is fun to follow along on the learning journey of a young person earning their pilot certificate. So it really can energize your chapter. So if you haven't done this before, you might want to check that one out.
Hey.
I just wanted to add is that we have Home Builders Week coming up at the end of this month, January 26th. This is a great opportunity to start the new year to learn a lot about home building information. If you're just thinking about it, we have a lot of sessions that are targeted at the new builder, but we even have some on FA certification and insurance and liability and things like that that would appeal to the experienced home builder as well. So definitely check out the schedule. There's a lot of great talks, and this wouldn't be possible without the generous support of Aircraft Spruce and Specialty, Dynon, Vans Aircraft, and Scheme Designers, who have all stepped up to sponsor this event. So it's going to be a great way to kick off 2021. And I just want to wish everybody a safe and prosperous and successful 2021 this year. And let's get out there and start doing some aviating.
And with that, folks, let's introduce Ike Kelly, our Builders Coordinator, who is going to take us through some of the cool resources and show us some things that hopefully we have not already seen. And I'm hopeful that all, however many dozen folks are dialed in, will learn something from this. So Ike, if you're ready, over to you.
Great. Thanks so much, Chuck. It's great to see everybody today. Glad everybody's on the VTC. I'm here with Steve Formals in his hangar with Paul and Keith, some friends. And Paul will pan around here for a second, just showing the hangar. We're on the north side of Bernie Stage. There's an RV3 in blue there and an RV8 in green with the green top here. And so the feature for today, well, we got, and then Darren, you can decide if you want to show slides as well or not. But we're going to start today with letting Steve talk a bit. Steve is a technical counselor for EAA as well as a flight advisor. And he's going to talk a little bit about the program. And then you can see from these two RVs here, as well as many others that he's built. There was another RV8 here just a few minutes ago before we started. And then we'll talk to Andrea out in Hondo a bit. And then I'll wrap up depending on a time available on my IFR grade in the Lancair. But with that, Steve, over to you to talk a little bit about the technical counselor program and building RVs in the San Antonio area. Thanks for your time today.
Let me introduce myself first, Steve Formals, and previously was a member of Chapter 35 back in the late 90s and early part of 2000. Got transferred to Dallas, Chapter 1078 up there, and now I'm back last couple of years ago. I haven't been very active in chapter, but I have been active with the RVs as a tech counselor. I've been a tech counselor for 15 or 20 years now and a flight advisor for 12 or 15. And one thing I've noticed with the technical counselor part of it is I haven't been getting a lot of action the last few years. I think that has a lot to do with the internet. So I'd like to get people interested in some more hands-on tech counselor stuff as opposed to going on the internet, because everybody thinks you can learn everything from the internet. It's not quite the same as having your hands-on stuff. And the same with the flight advisors. If you can find a flight advisor for the plane that you're building, it's very helpful to get speeds differences because they can have different engines, be configured differently, and you get a little bit of advice on that. So, and as far as using tools and things like that. I've got a lot of tools and willing to help people work on things, and you just need to know that I'm over here. So just for background on what I've built, I built 5 RVs personally for myself, an RV6, 2 RV8s, an RV12, and then the most recent one is the RV3. I was also a builder assist with Jay Pratt up in Fort Worth at his RV shop up there for a couple of years, and we built a lot of RV7s and RV8s. That's pretty much what he wanted to build up there. Plus some personal builder assists of my own. And as a hobby now, since I'm retired, I do some condition inspections and help people with their projects and repairs and things like that. So other than that, do you have any questions or anything? I'd be glad to field some questions. Well, before we do that, you did want me to talk a little bit about how to find a technical counselor. If you just go and Google EAA Tech Counselor, it'll take you right to the EAA site. You either already have to have been registered as a member, or you register, and then you can go right to the Tech Counselor site. And it's a little tricky at first. You go to the Tech Counselor site and you put in there how many miles from your home base you want to expand. So you might want to put 200 miles, make sure you get everybody. And then it says, what kind of help do you want? Firewall forward, wood, riveting, and it has a whole list of those kind of things. So you check that, and then it has airplane type. And this is where you might have a little trouble, because let's say I built an RV3 and you're building one, you check RV3. My name might not pop up. So you might want to check RV7, then all of a sudden a bunch of names will pop up. And I don't know why that is, but that's what happens. So don't give up on your first search. If you don't find anybody, check a few more boxes and see if you can find them. And then as a last resort, if you still can't get things to work, you can always call Ike, or you can get a hold of me, and would be helpful, or we'd be glad to help you go through the process. So what kind of questions have you got? Anything?
Yeah, so for folks, I think one of the key points on this is to understand that the EAA resources, certainly for San Antonio and Texas, there's a lot of stuff that's not necessarily right in our chapter. But it is within reach for folks that are looking for it. So at this point, if folks either want to chat a message to Darren and he can send them out, or if you just like to turn on your microphone and ask any questions. Paul's helping with the video here. He's obviously an RV builder. So did you have a question you wanted to start with on your thoughts on building, or also Steve for the RV builders in San Antonio in particular? If you see, if you'd like to share with them, if you think of any common errors or things that they'd, all of them would benefit from, as far as things such as shared tools or certain techniques maybe.
Yeah, the things that I like best about the building, for me personally, after having done all this building, is I like to do the wiring. I like to do the fiberglass, believe it or not. Most people don't like to do that. So I have lots of tips on them. I mean, it's not really appropriate right here because I could go on for hours with that, but also on the wiring. But on the wiring, the very first thing I would do is decide what all you want, and then write a schematic of all the wiring and how it's going to wire. And then it's easier for yourself to make a bundle of wiring that you can put in one time. You don't have to go back in and run more wires. And also think about drilling holes here and there. Surprisingly, you can wire, like this RV8 that I wired, everything is below the floorboards, 2 holes through the spar web, and that's it. And it's got everything you want in an airplane. It's just, you have to think ahead. And if you can get somebody to help you do that, it's really worth it. There's also a lot of free software available that can help you do wiring, to draw the schematics and everything. It's not as difficult as you might think. It's pretty straightforward, or even do it on a blue line if you have to, and change it over and over until you get what you want, because you got a lot of building time ahead of you before you start installing wiring. And you need to be thinking about that ahead of time, but it really can make your life a lot easier just doing that. So for wiring tips, I'm always available for that. Fiberglass and pretty much anything on the RVs, I'd be available for calls or visits or whatever.
Hey, Steve, I'm 9 months into a 6-month build. How many more days is it going to take me to finish an airplane?
Well, I always tell people, if they ask me when I'm going to be done, I say Thursday. So, take your pick on Thursday. It might be next year or 2 years, or might be next Thursday. So everybody's building skill is different. So you can't really say how long is it going to take you, because some people have a lot of time to put into it. Some people can only work on evenings. Some people can only work on Saturday. So, and then how fast they work according to their skill, makes a gigantic difference too. So to get a little guidance here and there, if you've never done it before, can really, really help you speed the process up and save you a lot of money from damaging parts and pieces.
Yeah, and in case I forget on saying it, talking about it later, when we look at the IFR upgrade for the Lancair that I did, I got a lot of help from Steve early on that. That made everything surprisingly smooth and no broken parts. So thanks again for your help for that. Darren and Chuck, are there any text questions that came in while we're talking here, or are there any folks who'd like to go hot mic and ask a question to Steve about either the technical counselor program in general or RV building in particular?
I didn't have any. Yeah, I didn't have anything in the chat, but Steve, I do have a question. What's your radius of operation if someone would like to get your expert eyes on their project? Where do you operate out of, and how far out do you go personally?
Well, of course, my hangar's in Bernie Stage, and there's a lot of builders in San Antonio. So anywhere around San Antonio, or if it's at an airport, of course, I can fly there. I just take it as they come, and if I can do it, I'll do it. And if I can't, I'll let you know that I can't do it. So I've traveled a ways, but most people are close by. So I can't really answer that. Just ask me, and I'll tell you if I can do it or not.
Awesome. Hey, so most of the van's line is the solid rivets, and a number of our chapter members are volunteering in a local high school that's building an RV12 with the pulled rivets. What's your impression of the? I don't know how much hands-on you've had with RV12s, but do they meet the same kind of quality standards and flying characteristics of the rest of the RV fleet?
Well, believe it or not, one of the 5 RVs that I built for myself was an RV12.
Okay.
And I really enjoyed that airplane. When I first started getting ready to fly it, I didn't know what I was going to think about it because it was a light sport aircraft and all of that. The building process was straightforward. The kit was great. I've seen people not even deburr or anything to the holes. They just push the rivets through. Of course, I always recommend deburring, and sometimes the rivets don't want to fit well, so you have to ream a little bit. But it's very straightforward building. It's very quick. The plane flies great. I was really surprised about how great it flew. So I have all good things to say about RV12. So I haven't messed with the 12IS, so I don't know anything about the new engine, but I've heard good things about it. Now, one thing I will say about the 12 is that it's a light sport and it's a very light airplane. It only weighs, hold on. It only weighs 750 pounds when it's completed. So it is a light sport. It has a pretty large payload, carries plenty of glass, has good instrumentation, but it has a lot of service bulletins. And I think the service bulletins come from building it light to be a light sport, because there's a few little areas here and there where they've gotten cracks and things. But I will say Vans is up on getting those out to the people, and for no cost usually. Sometimes they just show up. You might not even know about service bulletin, but if you're the builder, they just show up. And they're usually pretty straightforward and easy to fix. But of course, I'd recommend doing all of that. But as time goes on, and I don't feel like I can get a medical, I'm definitely going to go back to an RV12, because that's how much I like them. They're quick, they're roomy. You can easily carry 2 people and passengers, and actually there's more space inside of it than an RV7 because of the way the canopy is more straight on the sides, where an RV7 kind of curves in, so you have a lot more shoulder room. So I was real impressed by the RV12s, and I would recommend them.
Excellent, excellent. Hey, we had one text from one of our participants asking for your contact information. If someone wanted to reach you, how would you recommend they reach out to you?
Well, I can give you my telephone number, or I can put it out on the web. It's 210-289-3984, and you can text on that. Text, I think, is the best for me because I always have my phone with me. So Ike says he's going to distribute that information. I'll also give him my email. Feel free to email, because I could send more information back that way. I'd be happy to do it.
Okay.
So you know what we need is for you to join our chapter or rejoin the chapter, so that your information is included in our database of technical counselors on the newsletter. So you
I
are
see there's a
cordially
salesman in the
invited.
bunch.
You're cordially invited to rejoin your chapter 35.
Thank you. Great. Thanks for the plug, Chuck. And I'm on top of that. So with that, folks, Steve, thank you so much for your time. And so really appreciate you allowing us to come into your awesome hangar here and educate folks on the technical advisor program or counselor program. Darren and Chuck, at this point, Paul and I are going to move over to my hangar. And so I think there's some slides that I made available. If you'd like to use those, that's great. Otherwise, I think we're ready to go over to Andrea and JR and Han. They're putting an A30 attitude indicator and a trig radio into one of her planes. And so with that, back to Darren and Chuck and over to Andrea and JR. And we'll be back with you in just a minute. Thanks.
Oops. Hey, over to you.
I'm here, and my helpers, which are doing all the work, and I'm just standing around watching. Let me put the camera properly to show them. Should I do, I guess, share screen?
We can see your, if everyone will go to speaker view on your Zoom platform there, it will highlight her presentation and it will fill up your screen.
Okay, so
we
a
are
noisy
seeing
airplane
just
just took off, so I didn't hear what you guys said, but.
No, you're good, Andrea. Keep going.
Okay, so JR and his son Riley are both here. Riley's kind of like down there below. He's installing my radio, and JR is giving him instructions to make sure it's straight. And then I was fixing to go out and get a whole bunch of nuts and screws that we might be needing. And when I said, oh, I better go back and make sure that I can do this. So the scope is here is I have to take the whole thing apart, plus maybe even more. And so I've taken an altimeter and I've taken my airspeed out indicator out. And we're going to put the, in here, we're going to put the radio. And here we're going to put the, oh no, we're going to do the right, sorry. This is the radio, and this is the AV30.
Attitude indicator,
Here, give it to me and I'll show you. This is going to be so cool. And actually, JR has a really cool feature that I didn't even know this could do. This would be the only Pitts in the world that can do it. So go ahead and tell them what we're doing here.
Oh yeah, we're going to connect the trig radio. We're going to connect this attitude indicator, which will give audio enunciation of G-forces through the radio, through the aux-in and the radio. So those are features you can set, program in, and it'll basically report on how many G's you're pulling during maneuvers. It will give you warnings and whatnot that are customizable. So very good stuff.
I told him as long as I can shut it off. And then this other hole is going to be where the radio is. This is nothing easy here. And the radio plate was manufactured yesterday and it's still a little damp, but there's my little plate that actually goes on. And here's the...
That's the head, the control head for the radio.
Yeah. Little bitty thing.
And this is going to go on the battery belt.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, you guys can pretend that this is sitting up in here on the new plate that inserts. And then we're going to install the other piece, which is the brains in the massive storage container where I can put my suitcase.
Yeah, that sits back there.
And then there's a cable that goes between here, and it's gonna run down below here and all the way to here. The headset jacks are gonna be over in this corner.
And the push to top will be at the top of the flight stick.
Yep. Nothing that looks too complicated except when you know what you're doing, and I'm grateful for JR and his son to actually help me. So, and we can get some finished product pictures once we're done. Are there any questions?
Yeah, tell us a little, have JR introduce himself and tell us a little bit about him and his experiences. I've heard a lot about him, but never met him.
Okay, well, here I'm gonna have him
Oh, okay. JR Sawyer, real junior pilot. I've been an embedded system engineer for about 22 years. So I used to design electronics professionally. I do something akin to that as an embedded system designer working at Mantech at this point. But I'm really loving avionics, so I decided to build a Sonics YX in the garage back home in San Antonio. And I've actually, it was serendipitous that Andrea needed these particular devices installed because I had evaluated them, their installation guides, months ago for the Sonics YX, so I was very familiar with how they were installed. So I was pretty happy about that. But you know, I'm learning as well. But it's more about learning the techniques used in aviation. I'm familiar with telecommunications and whatnot, but not the techniques used in this particular aspect. So I've been learning that from the standard book and the FAA books for it. So good times, good times. And of course, I'm very well versed in solving grounding problems because I did that professionally using power products when I worked for Exeltech. So even one of our products went up on one of the last space shuttle missions, and I got to work with NASA engineers to figure out their grounding issues years ago. Yeah, good times. But this is good practice, and it's certainly fun, and it's fun to hang out and work on these awesome airplanes.
Excellent.
And Riley, you're gonna have to, because this is a young man that's up and coming.
Hello. So I'm a mechanical engineering major at UTSA. I'm mainly poking holes in the plane, so hopefully it'll give it some more attributes other than just holes.
He says it will make my airplane lighter.
It'll do it.
I'm not sure about all that. Is there anything that anybody wants to see on the airplane?
Just want to look at it. That's awesome, Andrea. That's really cool. And I can't imagine. So as an aerobatic pilot, how does hearing the G-force help you in your maneuvers?
Well, we were discussing that. First, they asked me if I wanted to have that feature. My first instinct was no. Then I thought about it for a second, and the actual answer could be potentially for loops only. Okay. That it might be kind of handy because you got to pull a whole bunch when you're actually going into the loop and pull a whole bunch when you're leaving. And if those numbers are pretty accurate, your loop most likely be more round, providing there's no crosswind or other wind going on. So potentially is a good learning thing, but I would not want to have it on all the time. Now it did say it also has some ground proximity and some other stuff that I said, well, I don't know if I want all that stuff, but he said, you can shut it off. So shutting off things are good, but this airplane, both instruments were never accurate. And since the airspeed indicator completely died the last 2 flights, I decided that if I had it all in one, and if I had this puppy open, I'm not pulling it open ever again. The challenge of getting all the cowling off, you have no, I mean, they were not engineered to actually take apart. So I first had to take the cowling off. This piece here, I don't dare take further apart. If I do, I think I have to take a wing off. Yeah, and so like I say, I had to take the whole bottom off to get to where all this is. Then this piece of metal that's over the gas fuel tank, that took 2 people to take off, so you could kind of bend it to get it off. So it was never really designed to remove. It was a one-time. So I thought if I do this, I need a better radio than a handheld. Everybody's been complaining. I'm telling me I should. So I thought, well, I'll spend the money at that point.
Well, that looks awesome. That's a great investment. Really impressive how small the components are and how lightweight. Now, is your red Pitts going to be jealous?
She has a radio already, but yeah. But this is the brains. Can you imagine? That's all. The weight of this is less than a normal radio. The whole weight. So yeah, the little red Pitts has a radio and even a transponder, believe it or not. This one's not getting that.
Okay.
So your ADI, is it completely self-contained? I mean, the ADHRs and everything is in that particular, in that little box. There's no remote unit or magnetometer?
I can answer that. Yes. The AI, the AV30 has MEMS accelerometers and gyros built into it. So a lot like your cell phone, but a little bit more balanced than that. So it can pick up motion and whatnot in 3 dimensions. The problem with any kind of gyros and accelerometers is they can lose precision over time, like as they operate. But as long as there is some way for it to figure out what stable is when you're in stable flight, it'll recalibrate. So that's kind of what I believe this one does, although I've been reading through its theory of operation to see. But yeah, this one does not actually need any external sensor because they're all internal, which is really nice, especially if something should happen, as long as it has power. And that's the other thing, it has a built-in lithium-ion battery, and it displays right on there that it has 100% power, and then it will warn you when it goes to the battery. It knows it no longer has aircraft power, and it basically gives you a countdown until you lose that device, which might be real handy. Yeah.
I didn't even know that. A friend of mine has one of these installed, and he says everybody needs something like an artificial horizon. I said, well, if I need an artificial horizon in this, I'm in trouble. But I said, okay, but that was not the reason. I wanted to put the airspeed and altimeter in one, and that's what this function primarily was the reason I got it. For all the other bells and whistles, I can tell you, well, that's
the battery. Yeah. So this has a battery in here, lithium ion, and it will only power this device, but it will always indicate here how much battery life it has, like your cell phone. It looks exactly like a cell phone. Tells you, hey, I'm on power. I'm currently getting power with a lightning bolt, and I'm at 100% battery. And then it will warn you when that goes away, and then it'll start counting down its percentage until it's at 0 power. But it'll operate until that goes down. So.
Which I bet, for the way things work, I bet you at least a half hour.
They said 30 minutes
yeah.
up to 2 hours. Depending
they said depending on the usage of between 30 minutes to 2 hours. So
being a U avionics product, how does that interface with the tail beacon or the wingtip beacon ADS-B that they are even better known for?
I don't know. I mean, I know my trig I can hook avionics with to be able to put ADS-B with, but I don't know how that would work with an ADS-B. The AV30 doesn't have anything to do with ADS-B though.
It doesn't.
No, it's just with a trig that I have. Maybe there's another model I could hook it into, but so I'm not sure if I'm answering your question or not.
I would have to look at that because it can take a GPS input, but I don't see an output for, because they need altitude, but they also need GPS for the new ADS-B standard stuff. So
I think they bought that design from a different company. So although it's under U Avionics, it was really originally designed by a smaller shop.
It was. I have the old manuals for it and the new manuals, and they changed the name. It wasn't that long ago. I think it was like 2 years ago. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Good times.
All right. Anything else from you guys? Or Ike?
So, JR, are you one of our members? And
yes.
Would you like to be included in our technical counselors or resources that Ike is doing such a great job of building up for us?
That'd be awesome.
Sure, I'd love to. Yeah, I'm a member. I've been a member for a couple of years. Paul Worcester is my CFI right now. So yeah, he got me interested in it originally. So
You just run outside, RJ.
Outside. Outstanding. Well, I thought you were, but I didn't know if you'd met everybody on this group, and so that's great. And
it's been rough with the pandemic. I haven't been on a lot of the Zoom calls, unfortunately, but no, I keep my membership up. So yeah.
Sweet.
As long as we got his money, that's fine.
There it is.
There's the man.
Okay.
Great. Hey, special thanks to Andrea and JR for showing us the install there. I know those are popular items that other folks may be considering, and so hopefully, well, that's another resource for folks to look at. And Andrea, maybe for interested folks, we could even write an article for the newsletter in a future issue. At this time, if possible, either Darren or Chuck, if I can ask everybody to mute their mics, and then for Darren to go ahead and push slides. And I think you can set up on the slide for right after Andrea's attitude indicator install, the one immediately following that. And then I'll go hot mic again. So I'm going to mute right now.
Okay, so there was our agenda. Let's see, Builder's Corner.
All right, great. So I'm going back hot mic here. That's right, that slide right after the AV30 Trig 90 install. These slides will be available to everyone. And Darren, there we go, stop right there. And so I'm gonna spend about 10 minutes, and then we'll have a little bit at the end of the meeting for either any additional questions, as well as for both Darren and Chuck to be able to go ahead and do wrap up for the meeting. So for those of you who are here last year, at the beginning of last year, I talked about the Lancair purchase, which you'll see in a little bit. And one of the to-dos was going to be the IFR upgrade on that. And so folks that you've seen today, such as JR, has been a huge help with some of the work here, as well as Steve Formals. And so I'm going to dive right in on some of the items for the build. And so Paul's playing cameraman today. And so just a couple of things to think about here for this slide. That if we can go to the next slide. Okay, great. So a couple things I want to talk through. One is for the lessons learned, the manual. So Garmin's modular, and so they have a ton of data available on how to do your install with different types of systems. So out of that, there's 500 pages of installation stuff for the equipment that I have, which it seems overwhelming. But the truth is there's only a couple of pages that really matter for about 80 to 90% of the work. And so working with folks like JR, Steve Formals, looking online, I can really neck it down to those couple of pages, roll up my sleeves, and get to work. Other notes, Garmin has a specific phone number for technical advisors for experimental, and I found that to be very, very helpful. And so use that resource if you're working with Garmin. And then also Steve Formals had got me onto the Garmin technical videos. So if you want to know a particular soldering technique or wiring technique, all of those resources are available online. I'm a visual learner. That was an awesome resource. So you see there just on the right side of the side, just for the table of contents, there are many, many diagrams. If we go to the next slide there, here's the one pager that is the 80 to 90% of the work that I ended up going off of. And again, for me, a German language and literature major, this seemed a little bit daunting, but you learn how to do one pin connector at a time. And after you got the first 2 or 3 under your belt, the rest are pretty straightforward. To reiterate what Steve said, this is a blank sheet, right, that I took out of the manual, printed out. There's about another 3 or 4 pages of written instructions and notes to be aware of as you do this install. And so I printed this out, and I've been making in ink handwritten notes as I do the installation. And so the 2 things that I have highlighted there, you see the red box, and just in PowerPoint, I put kind of a green line there. One lesson learned is if you install 2 G5s, depending on how you have them communicating, in my setup, they're on an area network or a closed area network. And so on that network, every device has to have its own address. Well, when you get your G5s shipped to you, they all have they have the same default address in them. And the way you change one of the addresses on the communications network is that one of the devices, in this setup, the HSI or the second G5, you have to ground one of the pins. And that's that green line there. You see pin number 3 on the connector on the back of the G5, the HSI. has to be grounded for it to have a separate electronic address on the network. And so I had overseen this when we first did the install and got the appropriate error message as we were firing up equipment, and then just had to go back in, put another pin into the harness, and then on my notation there, I grounded it onto the shielding, which is then also grounded on the main aircraft ground. And I'll talk about grounding as well here in a little bit. And so that's a hand notation on my hard copy, and then you just see it here for our PowerPoint briefing. And then what I will do once I'm kind of done and everything is tested and flying, I'm gonna make PowerPoint slides that have all of my chicken scratch hand notations printed out in detail. And then that'll be both hard copy and electronic copy for future reference. The other red box you see kind of to the right center there is that Garmin will give you, even within your specific scenario, you still have options. In my case, some of the connectors are 64-pin connectors. I think on the 64-pin connector, I need maybe 15 pins. Approximately. And so there are options that Garmin gives you because you may decide, for example, in this diagram, the autopilot is not accounted for. And so you can look through, well, there are different ways that you can have your autopilot communicate with Garmin systems. And so by them giving you different options here on your initial configuration, that may allow you to keep other pins open for the future. And so they give you an either or, that little or box there. And so those are other things to make annotations of as you do your build. All right, so with that, if Darren, you can stop pushing slides and we'll go back to the camera that Brother has, okay? Paul, if you can kind of just a couple of quick lessons learned here in the next 4 minutes. So this box here is your typical O'Reilly AutoZone automotive connectors. These are not to be used. I've got these here for like some temporary connections, just if I wanted some throwaways to use. And the reason being is what you will see commonly in if you go to your AutoZone or Home Depot is this crimping tool right here. You see it's pretty thin. And these connectors, right, are they've only got about this right on here, and is this type of a crimping tool, which you can see is a lot heftier, quite a bit wider, and you use different types of connectors. These are the ones that I ordered through Aircraft Spruce, and you can order these by one at a time or in bulk, and so they have basically a double crimp in the teeth there. And so that was an important lesson learned for me, having worked a lot on automobiles. The other thing is for your crimping tools and electrical tools, some of the help you get, some of these tools are special order. So I thought going to an electrical company here in San Antonio that this was the appropriate tool, using this part here to crimp. Let me get a white background here. There we go. This would be the appropriate tool to use for crimping the pin connectors that go into the harnesses. And so you see here the male and the female pin connectors. And of note, there are different sizes for these, two primary sizes, basically the large and the super small. And so that crimping tool that the local electrical company told me to use, this one here, it works, but only one way. It is not the correct tool. The correct tool to use to crimp the pin connectors is what many of you may know, but I didn't know at the time, is a tool called, often referred to as My Little Crimper. And it looks complicated because it has all of these settings in it. I don't know how well this will work against background. If we can get the camera super close inside right here, maybe you can see carefully as I close this, there are 4 pins that close into that crimp. And so in any case, this is the right tool to use. Thank you, Mark Holden. I have not lost it. I'm still borrowing your My Little Crimper. And the reason I'm borrowing this one is because this tool costs, depending on the size model that you get, well, I guess there's only one model for the company, but over $300. And I think this one was $12. And I'm kind of a cheap and lazy guy, and so I want to buy it in San Antonio. And so I have one pin in one of my wiring harnesses where I use this crimper. That pin cannot be removed. Fortunately, I put that pin in the correct hole, but if I have to rebuild that harness for any reason, I'm going to have to start from scratch. So tool selection is important, and that's probably something, if I had talked to Steve a little bit more before starting on my crimping, would have saved some time as well. Also here, these are your your tools to insert and remove your pins. These two look identical to me, but they are in fact different sizes. Those are also specialty orders. So just be aware, this is where it really helps to talk to someone who's done this type of an installation before, because you can find out which tools you need to order that you can't get at Home Depot. Other tools, of course, you need to have your cordless drill, super helpful, your multimeter, and soldering gun. And then with that, we're going to look in the plane real quick. And I know we're pretty short on time here today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start one of the, for Garmin, most of the Garmin systems will start up in configuration mode if you hold one of the key buttons in. So we'll go ahead and do that now. All right, and so what you'll see is the HSI is going to boot up normal, and I started up the attitude indicator in configuration mode. And the configuration is actually very straightforward, is very simple to do. It's step-by-step, and each of the instructions for your particular installation will tell you how to go ahead and configure it. And so if you go for device information, it'll give you some indicators there. For the attitude data, you will customize for your aircraft any offsets that you have for your attitude indicator. For your air data, you put all of your speeds in and calibration information as well. That'll show up on your tapes. Right here, you see my speeds, VNE, VNO, VSO, and so forth are all listed out here. Those show up in different colors on the tapes. And so forth. So the configuration part of this was pretty straightforward. We're pretty much out of time. I'll have Paul show, I don't know how well we can see back, those little pads that you can get at Home Depot. Take the double-sided tape off of them and then use an epoxy of your choice and place them around your aircraft. And then you can really kind of tuck your wires away. This goes up to a temporary housing I have for my magnetometer. Magnetometer installation and magnetic interference is one specialty project I wasn't aware of. And then lastly, I'll take the camera from Paul. Just want to show the other side of the panel real quick to the degree that we can here. Doing the vacuum lines, it may look a little bit like a spaghetti factory, but it went relatively simple there. You see very small the HSI and the AI, both back here, and then that's about it. So I think the last thing I would say is I ordered with the 4-foot pigtail harness that Garmin supplies. In hindsight, it would have been more efficient and a little bit cheaper to go ahead and just build the harnesses myself. So if anybody has questions about how to put in a GNX 375, 2 G5s, and the magnetometer and the Jan2021 flight computer, I'm here to answer questions. And so with that, we're pretty much out of time. I wanted to thank everybody who contributed to today's meeting. And with that, back to Darren and Chuck. Oh, and I'm sorry, I do have a teaser. Brian Smith and his RV7 is installing, is also doing an IFR upgrade. He's going to go with Avidyne, it looks like. And so if anybody's looking at Avidyne equipment, send Brian a note. But we will also feature him in a meeting in a couple of months. So thanks everybody for showing up today. It's great to see everyone.
Thanks so much, Ike. If people want to reach out to you with questions, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Yeah, just via email or my phone number. Send me a text. I'm on the chapter roster, and so that's pretty much the best way to get a hold of me.
Okay, super, very good. Chuck, any preview comments for next month's get-together?
Well, first off, let me just say thanks to Ike and Paul and Andrea and JR and, wow. I mean, the whole group of you guys, outstanding. The teaser about membership for everybody is certainly applicable to our technical counselors. We would love to have as many folks as we can on our roster, our member roster, so that we do have that right at our fingertips. But also just a reminder to everyone, it is now 2021. If you haven't already paid your dues, please do. Remember that, most of the time we end up paying it at the front desk as we come in because we all forget. And this year we're not going to have that opportunity. So we really do need for folks to pull out that piece of paper off of the newsletter and send it to Ron so that we get, so we have everybody current on our membership. It is really hard for chapters of any sort, whether they're EAA chapters or any other organization right now, to keep members engaged and busy and part of the group. And so I'm so excited that we've got so many folks that are continuing to be active with us. That is just great. Please reach out to your friends and neighbors, invite them to join us. And as far as a preview goes, you will see in this newsletter, if you haven't already read it, a draft calendar for the upcoming year. Realistically, the next 3 months, there are 3 or 4 months, there's just, no end in sight just yet. Remember that we are prohibited by Bexar County from having more than 10 people together in a formal setting. So it's not that any of us don't want to do things. Believe me, there is nobody that wants to be back to doing Young Eagles rallies and in-person meetings and in-person gatherings. There's nobody that wants to do that more than I do or that Darren does. So we're right there with you. We're dying to do so. I am cautiously hopeful that we'll be able to start doing some in-person things outdoors later on this spring, that they'll relax some of those shackles so that we can start doing that. So you'll see that I structured the upcoming calendar to do outdoor events, fly-ins, cleanups, and things like this for the first few events that we do. And then by fall, hopefully we'll be able to settle back into some semblance of normalcy and get back into the clubhouse and do some of the in the clubhouse sort of things. But I'm really hoping that we are able to get together by early summer, and then hopefully many of us will be on our way up to Oshkosh at the end of July, knock on wood. Until then, everybody just please continue to do what you're doing. Stay safe, protect yourself, protect your loved ones, get out and fly, and stay engaged with each of us and your chapter and all of your friends. That, Darren, is all I have. Back to you.
Thank you, Chuck. Hey, I want to thank everyone for spending time with your aviation family here at EAA35 today. And please reach out with questions and comments and suggestions. And if you don't know who to talk to, feel free to send a note to president@EAA35.org, and I'll get you to someone that can give you a vector or get you connected. But thanks again. Please fly safe, stay well, and look forward to talking to everyone again soon. Take care.